succinctly and plain English terms the 3 steps that you just explained, because it did sound like a lot. So step 1.
Step 1, councils come to Office of Local Government and say, look, we're thinking...
Express interest in working together.
We think that there's a possibility that this could work. Office of Local Government works with them.
To support the design of that proposal. So that's a reform proposal that's prepared to make sure that when they come to the government, there's absolute clarity in relation
so step 2 is preparing the reform proposal.
Step 2 is analysis and preparation of the report.
Of the report, which would include full financial analysis and all that stuff that was missing from the however many millions was spent on the board, I was going to call it Board of Inquiry, local government review process, which I know I had expectations it would deliver more in terms of the actual economic modelling and what could possibly be achieved. You know, it's certainly a lot of hours and time and thought was put in by local government, and I know there was perception by some that was for what, you know, because really what was needed if we were really having meaningful discussion about reform was that next level. And I know the university...
Understand what you're going to lose.
Well, and understand what could be gained.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, which is show me the data and show me the modelling to demonstrate that this is a good idea, and that was missing from all of that analysis.
It's not as simple as merging 2 neighbouring councils.
That's right.
No.
Exactly.
They are both on very different terms at the time that they come to the table for the merger, and that has to be taken into account as well.
Yeah.
We should also shouldn't limit it, Minister, surely, to just 2 councils merging. It could be, as I think, you know, the redistribution of the boundary.
No, absolutely.
When the Electoral Commission looks at our boundaries, and I take up more of Montgomery next time again, it's because it's a redistribution to make it work. And then we saw that massive change across the centre of the state. Not me, I just caused the problem from the outset. Yeah.
So step 1, councils come to the office, express interest in developing a proposal. Step 2 is developing the proposal.
Analysis,
And who is going to pay for that?
So at that point in time, the proposal's taken to the government, and the government comes back with the support program it would like to provide.
A proposal to develop a proposal.
A proposal to do the analysis. So you develop the proposal in phase 1, and then phase 2 is doing the analysis, doing the technical analysis, doing any necessary community engagement with the support of the state government by way of funding.
Basically, the Office of Local Government brings a proposal to us, and as a cabinet, we make a decision on whether we think it's worth funding.
Okay, so the Office of Local Government develops that proposal.
Yeah. So look, very basically, Kentish and Latrobe, for all intents and purposes, are merged already. If they brought a proposal to us that they wanted to formalise that, I think as a state government we would be looking for more than just that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If we were going to put money on the table to advance it, we'd be looking for something more than just that.
It may be that you want to include parts of another municipality to make it work better.
Make it work better, exactly.
Yeah. So that's fine, but who's going to... So the Office of Local Government's going to do that piece of work, working with the 2 or 3 or however many councils?
Yeah, through you, Minister, can I just go back to your previous comment about the broader report and the disappointment around the detailed financial analysis? I mean... The reason for that is that there are an infinite number of potential reform options that need to be identified to do exactly this work that we're talking about. So this is the process that says, well, come to us and tell us exactly what you think the option is that you want to test, and then we'll work with you, and the government will consider its ability to support doing the detailed financial analysis and the costs and benefits of that proposal, so that can be then put to a board, and then the board can pull that apart and say, is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? It's very specific, community-led, this is what we propose and this is the benefits of that proposal, and then that can lead to a really robust, clear set of recommendations from government and get away from, you're quite right, the very frustrating situation where you're stuck in talking in generalisations, which doesn't get you where you need to be.
Yeah, I don't disagree that's the work that's required. I guess my frustration is, why didn't we just do that in the first place?
Because you have to come up with the proposals. This broader review was looking at the entire state, and we could spend a decade looking at the 1,000 permutations of different reform options and waste a lot of money on assessing proposals that had no hope of getting up. This allows us to invest in those proposals that have got the most chance of success because they've got community support and they've got clear terms and they're well considered.
Yep, fine, yep. Well, it's done now, so we can't change that money was spent on that. So anyway, I've got that off my chest. Let's move on. So the funding for the Office of Local Government's been reduced from 2.8 million in 23-24 to 2.38 million in 24-25, 2.37 million in 25-26 and 2.2 million in 26-27. So it's going down, and I acknowledge there's efficiency dividends that are to be achieved across government. And we've heard that 250,000 will be allocated just in this 1 year,
And next year. Yep.
So 2 years.
It was 250 a year for 2 years, wasn't it?
1 year.
It was only 1 year.
So 1 year. So that's not a lot to get around all of the councils that might be interested in working together. You're going to be very busy in the next 12 months with that 250,000 to satisfy, well, what you hope will be some level of demand from councils to engage in these conversations. I hear what you're saying, Minister. It'll be your job to then put forward requests for additional funding for funding of that more technical analysis. That might be required to see reform achieved, and also then I assume for funding ongoing for the Office of Local Government to be able to continue this work past just 1 year, because I imagine it's going to take more than 1 year. Is that your intention?
Yes.
Okay. And we've talked a lot about training and behaviour of elected members. We've talked a bit about that. We know that training won't necessarily improve, well, training in itself won't improve behaviour. Code of conducts and reform to that won't necessarily improve behaviour, and to some extent there's always going to be psychological safety risks in the local government environment for both staff and for elected members, and we know that that's something that's been identified as being really important in the sector. And in fact, at the recent Legat meeting, I understand, in September, there was a resolution supported that the state government as a priority introduced legislation that mandates the need to have workers' compensation insurance or equivalent available to councillors to support recent legislative changes regarding psychosocial safety, and also work with the insurance industry to introduce the insurance framework as a priority. You're aware of that resolution that was passed?
I'm aware of the resolution that was passed.
And has the government yet formulated a response or position on that?
Through you, Minister. I don't think Legat has put a position in relation to that one just yet, but I think it goes to the point that work health and safety and psychosocial harm is an acute issue in relation to the local government sector. So I presume when Legat does bring that to the table, it would be good to get a real sense of the parameters of that problem.
Through you, Minister, can I just say that it's been an incredibly positive trend that councils and general managers and mayors are increasingly talking about workplace health and safety and psychological safety in the workplace. Now, some of that is driven by some pretty ordinary behaviour, but I think some of it is also driven by an increasing awareness of the harm that can be caused to people in these processes. So the trajectory in terms of understanding what needs to be done to protect the health and well-being of both elected and non-elected officials is really positive, and I suspect will continue in all of the reforms that we've got on foot.
One of the legislative reforms to the Local Government Act that I've recently announced will be to clarify the respective obligations, duties powers of council, the mayor, other elected members and senior council staff under our work health and safety legislation as well.
Okay. Thank you. In terms of the one of the other things that came out of the local government review, that clarity of roles, state government, local government, even federal government, and the whole concept of cost shifting, was identified as quite a big issue. And the government some time ago talked about partnership agreements, and I know there's been a couple, I think East Coast, West Coast. What's happening with other partnership agreements, and is that the vehicle really to be establishing, I know the review talked about a charter and that was going to be quite broad brush though, those partnership agreements in terms of what roles and responsibilities are on the ground and including responsibility for funding different initiatives, is the partnership agreement the vehicle for that, do you think?
Look, I think it's one vehicle for it, but I think that it needs to be an ongoing conversation as well. The single biggest complaint I get when I visit councils across the state is that they are the provider of last resort. When I'm talking to them, the state government can complain about the federal government's role in primary health provision and the fact that it's been cost shifted onto states, but the state government has to accept as well that we do it to local government as well.
That's right, thank you.
And so there needs to be an
Not the mayor.
I had a gripe about that in my budget reply, didn't I?
You did.
But as Kerry was saying before, as the level of government closest to the people, the local government's the easiest ones to complain to as well. And so when something as simple as a nature strip on a state road isn't maintained properly, the first people that get called aren't state growth. The local council gets called. Now, if it's not rectified, that's the local council that's pilloried as well. That's a very basic example, but I know that there are several councils across the state who are providing GP services at the minute simply because it's the only way that they can maintain those services as well. That's patently unacceptable as well, and it needs to be part of the conversation as well.
So those partnerships agreements are one vehicle, but you see that there's other ways.
They're one vehicle, but I don't think they're the only vehicle to be having those conversations as well.
Do you think there could be capacity within a government agency for there to be a centralised role for funding to local government on different initiatives? Because certainly that was one of the things I identified when I was mayor, was that we had funding from about 5-6 different agencies for different initiatives.
Yeah,
and so you've got acquittal requirements and reporting requirements to all of these different agencies, and this agency doesn't know that agency's given you funding, and some of the things are top down. So state government said, for example, can you deliver the Jobs Hub, can you deliver the 2610 program? They're things that are sort of tacked on to what councils do. In some ways it could be identified as cost shifting. Another way to look at it though is that local government is best placed to provide those programs and services to the community.
And that's the other complaint I get is we don't mind delivering services for the state government as long as the funding that's commensurate with the service that we're being asked to deliver comes with it as well.
Yes, and also as long as local government has the opportunity to say to state government, we're happy to do this, however, we've also identified this gap in our community that we really need funding for. So, and often that's the more difficult part of those conversations. For example, we needed funding to support a youth program in Glenorchy, and I was continually banging on the government's door saying we really need money for this.
And multiple ministers' doors
Multiple ministers' doors. We're delivering these programs, but what we'd prefer funding for is these things. Do you know what I mean? So there's not that two-way conversation about what are the priorities for your community, how can we work together and to jointly fund those.
I don't have a solution for you at the table tonight, but I understand where you're coming from, and there probably needs to be a more efficient way of having those conversations and discussing those funding priorities. The mayor's having to go to 9 different ministers for 9 different priorities in the municipality as well.
And finally, will any reform going forward and changes to the Local Government Act consider paying or legislating a requirement for superannuation for elected members?
Look, we've committed to a review of councillor allowances, I think.
Yeah, we do have regular reviews of council allowances. To be honest, I'm not aware of any active consideration of provision of superannuation for elected members. I don't think that's currently on the table.
No.
It's pretty prohibitive, particularly for mayors who do roles full-time.
And that is the problem, though, is differentiating between those. Like, I absolutely accept that, you know, the mayors of the larger councils who are doing it as a full-time job, the fact that there's no superannuation that goes with it is detrimental. But if you pay it to mayors, do you pay it to deputy mayors and to councillors as well? I don't know.
Elected members at other levels of government receive superannuation benefits, and elected members of boards, a lot of boards receive superannuation benefits of companies, things like that. They're not full-time positions. I think it's something that really needs serious consideration if we are to attract, you know, people who have skills and experience to local government. You know, they may choose other boards to spend their time on instead, you know. So it's something that I think is really important to getting good people around the table in the local government sector.
Can we take that one on board as an ongoing issue?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you. I just had something else come into my head and then I lost it.